is Groundeffected, and this video was sponsored by Toon Studios. I got a call last week on the hotline of model painting rescue and savior by Toon Studios, and they asked me if I was up for the challenge of painting all three of these ladies by this weekend. And as you know, I am always up for a challenge, and this seems like it's right up my alley. Hi, my name is your dad, and today I'm painting 3 Powerpuff Girls before I die. Now I am going to employ a little bit of help here, and I'm going to be asking Frankie to paint the little dollies, or plushies, that are on the dollies' bodies, that they are each holding, that represent each Powerpuff Girl. Obviously, this is a massive help. It doesn't mean that it is going to make it that much easier, because there are still 3 models to do, and I have about 2 days to do them, as well as make the video for this. Now, if ever there was a time for me not to waffle, this would be the video for me not to waffle. These models were sculpted by Toon Studios and are available. I'm not really sure if they're all together, but they must be, surely. I mean, they have been available, and if not, there are more models that are very similar to this 90s nostalgia. If you just go and check the link in the description. More about them later, but for now, I need to start on the bases and the legs and the gloves, because those are all very simple colors, and it means I can get them done probably the fastest. So my plan for today is to get all that done, as well as the skin tones, and then we'll work on the rest later. The legs and arms of these models are in white color, basically. So in order to paint them, I'm going to just straight up use a white primer over the top of them. This way, they are already the color that I need them to be, and I can move on to priming the rest of the model. And for this, I'm going to be using the same brand, Kaleido, which is from Gallery. I'm pretty sure that's how I'm supposed to say it. Anyway, I've been using this in replacement for my Citadel primer, and it has been working out pretty well so far. Now, on one of the bases there is a fire hydrant, and that I painted with a zenithal, and then gave it a red over the top using some Caribou Crimson to add some shadows into the shadow area. I'm then going to take some Apothecary White, which is basically grey, and I'm going to spray that into the shadows underneath the knees and around the feet and ankles of every single one of these legs, but also into the shadows of the gloves as well. I'm then going to give them a varnish, and to be honest, I actually did a gloss clear over the top of this. I know that's a semi-gloss, but I was not happy with that look, so I used the gloss, but I did not spray it thick and juicy, otherwise it would have been very glossy, and I did not want that. Now on the bases, I need to give them a zenithal, only to just get some lights coming into it. This is because the first step I'm going to do is paint the ground on these bases, and for that I use Snakebite Leather, which is a contrast paint, and because I put a zenithal underneath, it means that there is some free shading given to me by doing this technique. And now I'm going to come back and use a grey color to paint over pretty much all of the road surface areas, because on top of these bases is a road, and so this is exactly how I'm going to do it. Now, I will take some mournful rubber. The words are hard to say. It is Mournfang Brown. Basically brown. Reddish kind of brown. And I'm going to use my dry brushes, which are not my wife's makeup brushes, but they are very similar to those, if you get my drift. Anyway, I'm going to use that to dry brush around the rims of these bases to make sure that that brown has a little bit more character, as they say. I'm going to use a slightly lighter brown, in this case a kind of tan color, and do that again, because this way we are compounding colors and making things look even more complicated and better. Now I can use a light grey and go over the top of the road areas and make sure I pick out all of the sculpted detail that is on them. This dry brushing technique will create a lot of high edges, meaning that the light will hit the edges, but it's just technically paint, and I work my way up all the way up to deck tan for this area. I do this because I know I'm going to come back and I'm going to darken this down a little bit later, and I'm going to do that by using a Gryph Gray. This is a contrast paint, and people ask, when do I use contrast, and when do I use normals, and when do I... It doesn't matter. The color is the color, and for example, in this situation, this gray is going to tint certain areas of the tarred area, but at the same time, it's because it's a bluey gray, I can use this dark brown color, which is Agrax Earthshade, and I can spray that into the shadows, and specifically right around the line where they meet from the ground to the tar area, and this way it gives you a separation. But because I use two different color tones, it helps to separate these parts nicely from each other. I'm now going to use some masking tape and stick that over the areas where the road markings are, and then taking a sponge, I'm going to pretty much just sponge over the top of that using some deck tan. After that, I will take a bright yellow and I will sponge back over the top of that again. And all this time, I'm hoping that none of this is actually going to leak underneath the tape, so you want to make sure that you press the tape good and proper down. I then take a little bit of skeleton horde and I'll spray that in just random patches in order to create just a bit more not so bright yellow, because that looks crazy and you just don't want it to look so stark, otherwise it'll look weird. I then took a little bit of a dark gray and the same sponge, and I kind of sponged that into some of the areas on those lines just to make them look a little bit more worn. Otherwise, it will just look too perfect, and if it looks perfect, it's gonna look weird, and you don't want it to look weird. This is the one place you don't want things to be too perfect. I'm gonna paint a dark gray over the sewer drain thing that is sticking out of the one, and also over the sewer drain thing over the other. They're both sewer drain things, so accept it, you have no choice. I use a black, which is contrast paint, and this is because it's a thin paint that goes through my airbrush easy. I don't have to mix it with anything, and I spray that over both of those things. After I've done that, though, I will take a bit of silver and I will sponge that onto those pieces just to give them a bit more of a worn look. Next thing will be to take that exact same silver and paint the chains that are on the fire extinguisher, because they need to be that color, but also that also looks too bright and too colorful. So in order to dull it down, I use Gryph Gray to spray over them and make them tint just a little bit blue, but at the same time it gives them a shadow as well. I take some liquid skill, which is basically panel line wash, and I run that all over other sections of that fire hydrant and put it aside to dry while I primer the rest of the models, which is going to be the bodies, the heads, and also the torsos and things. Now, one thing I've been experimenting with lately is, instead of using ink for a zenithal, I've been using this primer. Because it flows really smoothly through my airbrush, I feel like there isn't really a need for the ink at the moment. I mean, there is a need, but not really, because this just... it flows smoothly. Normally ink, I need to add a little bit of alcohol or something to make it flow a bit better, but this stuff just flows through the airbrush with no additives. So for now, this is replacing it for me, and technically it's a little bit cheaper. I'm then going to paint every single piece of the skin tones like a grape, because grape makes the best skin tone color underneath skin tones, pretty much. I'm going to then use a red ink and I'm going to spray that into the shadows of all my grape models, and this is going to help to create a little bit of depth and add some shadows. Now we come to a controversial part of this video, which is these ionic paints, which was, I think, a collaboration between Ammo and Big Child Creatives. I don't know what happened there, but there was some sour things. The artist put up a post about, I don't want to get political about it, but basically they felt wronged, Ammo felt wronged, everybody felt wronged, and technically I can't really support this brand. However, I did see it in the manufacture, in the wholesale area, because I have a shop, I get to see the wholesale stuff, and it was there. It is a new set of skin tones, and I immediately bought it. And once I had bought it, it got here, it arrived, I saw the name Big Child on the box, and I remembered the dilemma that was caused by this entire thing. So who am I to say don't support or do support? Annoyingly, the paints are actually quite nice, but I don't think I will be buying anything more from them until I actually have figured out what is going on. And I felt like I'd already started using it when I'd figured out that this was a problem, and I'd made the choice to use it. and I just didn't want to lie to you guys. I figured that I would show you me using it, because I could have just hidden the names of this brand and just pretended it was any other color, but I'm not that kind of person. So I figured I would use it and show you me using it, but I'm not going to say that I support this brand at the moment. However, one very important brand that I do support is just Orcish Domus. That should be a brand all on its own. I don't even care who made it. At the end of the day, it's just the color Orcish Domus. That is all I care about for this particular situation. And that is to add the pinkness back into the skin, on the bendy part specifically. You can see how much life this brings into the skin, and it really is just a step that I can't be skipping ever. The next thing I will do after the Orcish Domus step is to paint a highlight, and this highlight is usually done using my brighter skin tone and a little bit of white ink added into that to create a very bright highlight. I will then take a bit of yellow and I'll water this down to practically just water and spray that into the shadows of the skins, thus making them a little bit warmer, and also it's going to just tint them just a little bit. I will then put a semi-gloss clear coat over all the skins to protect them a little bit while they sit aside and dry, and then I can start working on the rest of the models, which is going to be adding the colors to the suits of each and every character. I would like to quickly use this time to speak about the sponsor of this video, which is Toon Studios. This is a Patreon over on Patreon that creates nostalgic sculpts, things that you can 3D print from your childhood. Well, depending I guess on your age, but it's mostly nostalgic stuff for me. I mean, they had Courage the Cowardly Dog, they've got Powerpuff Girls, they did a bunch of princesses from a certain land. It is, honestly, they are one of the coolest Patreons around. You should definitely go and check them out in the description down below. Now, I did mention in the beginning of the video that I wasn't sure whether you got all three of these girls in the one release, and technically you don't. But if you are watching this video, then you're getting all three, because only if you sign up, obviously. I mean, I'm really messing up the words on this, but basically join them. Once you've joined them, send them a message, tell them that Groundeffected sent you, and they will send you bubbles, because the releases this month is a Blossom and Buttercup, so you won't be able to get bubbles unless you message them, and if you message them, they will give you bubbles. That is an exclusive to this Groundeffected channel, that will only if you tell them Groundeffected. If you message them, I suppose if you message and ask for it, then anyway, just go check out the description. Genuinely, Toon Studios has sponsored this channel for a while now, so we know we can trust their models. I really like their models. I did a Buzz Lightyear, which I really loved as well, so please go and check them out in the description down below. Now let's move on to painting the model, and the last things I need to do on these models is pretty much all the colors that make them the characters that they specifically are. So I obviously did green on Buttercup, and I did blue on Bubbles, and I did pink on Blossom. The words, these girls' names, honestly, I've been fighting. I knew them when I was growing up, but it's been such a freaking brain tease for me to figure out the names of these girls as I was painting these. But anyway, I want to quickly talk about how I did it. I used two colors. I used a medium color, so like a medium blue, like a mid-tier kind of pinky, and just like sort of a flat green kind of thing, and I painted those solid first, and then I took in the airbrush a brighter version of that color with quite a bit of water, and I just turned the compressor all the way down. You need to match the thinness of the paints or the thickness of the paints to this kind of pressure as well, because if it's too low it may start spitting, but also it's quite a complicated thing. But basically, if it's spitting, turn the pressure up a little bit, and if it is blowing too hard, you need to thin your paints a little bit more. Simple as that. I did the same concept for the black version or part of the suits as well, and then I decided to have a cup of coffee, obviously, because this was late Friday afternoon, and technically I should have been done with them already, but I would not be done if it weren't for Frankie helping me paint these little dollies, the extra little dollies, and I'm gonna let Frankie show you how he painted them right now.
After clearing my painting desk of my current projects, it's time to make way for the Powerpuff Girls, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to undercoat all these models using a purple paint from Vallejo. The reason for this is because I believe purple was going to marry up quite nicely with a bunch of the colours that are used in this painting process, such as the green and the red. It's going to make for a really nice undertone across all the models, helping them kind of seem like they exist in the same place. Now I'm going to do all of my airbrushing stuff at the beginning of this process, and that means I'm going to do the skin next. And for Mojo Jojo, he's obviously green, and we're going to use green sky to begin with, and then a little dusting from above using yellow green. For the girl's skin tone, I sprayed with German orange from above, making sure to leave some of the purple shadows that we sprayed on earlier, and then used cream white just to add a little bit of extra highlights from above. Now, overworking the skin on these kind of things doesn't make any sense because they are literally plushes. There's not as much depth to them as real life skin, so that's why I'm keeping it fairly simple here. For each of the girls' dresses, I did some good old-fashioned layer painting with the brush, using the appropriate colours for their dresses, and then I did the exact same technique for the irises of the eyeballs. To paint the actual white of the eyeballs themselves, I used ivory for a bit of off-white, and then highlighted it with some plain white later. When it came to highlighting the dresses and the irises, it's just a matter of picking a lighter version of that colour and layering it up like I traditionally would when painting like an orc or something that I do in my own kind of hobby. And all of the principles that I'm using to paint the 3 Powerpuff Girls has also been used on Mojo Jojo, just with the appropriate colours for him. And the telephone was really quite simple. It was just a matter of spraying it white from above, making sure to cast some purple shadows that we sprayed earlier on the thing, and then we're just going to pick out the individual colours for the phone and the circle on its front and whatnot with a brush. And then for each of these colours, I'm using Magos Purple as a little tint sprayed from underneath, just to each give them the same colour throughout, kind of making sure that all their shadows are the exact same colour to really help make them seem like they exist in the exact same place. Now back to your dad with the main thing.
And now that we've got that out the way, it's time for me to obviously work on the faces of these models. Now, this would be most people's nemesis. One face with 2 eyes is difficult enough, but you need to do now 6 eyeballs, because that is how maths works. I'm not afraid of them though. Genuinely, if you took your time and spent a load of time just painting one model, printed like 20 of them, and paint eyeballs till your fingers bleed, and then you will be better at painting eyeballs, and then you will no longer fear painting eyeballs. Honestly, it's the part that I least worry about now. I used to worry the most about it, but I feel like I've got them down to a good enough thing that I can just sort of vomit a few eyeballs onto a few models at this point. Yes, I know that is a flex, and I'm not flexing because it's something that I can do and you can't, because I know you can if you just put the time and effort into the practice that it takes to paint them. Now, of course, before I do those eyes though, obviously there is a couple things to tie up the loose ends, as they say, on these models, and that is going to be painting like the necklaces and the little baubles in the hair and the bow and all the little things that need to be painted that are additional pieces on the models. I also painted the hair in their respective colors, and these pretty much is the part where I need to start working on like eyebrows and things like that. So basically, I used the same color as the hair. This is a thing I regret, by the way. I always use a darker color for the eyebrows, except for in the case of black hair, because I feel like black hair should have brown eyebrows, and all the other dolls should have had a slightly darker eyebrow than what they had, like maybe brown in fact, because they for some reason it just looks weird. Anyway, moving on to the eyes, the easiest way to paint eyes at this point for me anyway is to put Magos Purple onto the insides of the eyes. This will leave the redness that I need around the outside of the eyes, but also it's a color that I need to paint the lips. These girls I don't think wear a lot of makeup, so in fact I didn't do any makeup, although looking back at it retrospectively, I think I should have put a little bit of makeup at least on maybe on Blossom and maybe a little bit on Bubbles. But anyway, it's a thing that I did. I decided not to put much makeup, although saying that I can see myself adding the little light line underneath the eyes. But notice I did it for just the 2 girls that are like more girly, and Buttercup just was not that kind of a girly girl, and so she probably wouldn't have definitely not worn makeup. So it's also cool, I noticed in the sculpts, by the way, that all the other girls are holding their plushies except for Buttercup, the one who just probably wouldn't give a little damn about any kind of dolly. Anyway, back to the models, and I painted the blacks of the eyelashes. This is a thing that you need to do before you do the sclera or the whites of the eyes, because you need this to be done now. If you make any mistakes, you can use a white, or in my case this highlight skin, to cover up some of those mistakes, and vice versa, by the way. If you use a little bit of white over the top of where the black area is and it goes off onto the black, it's not the end of the world. You can do something called a cutback, where you come back with the black and cut back over the white, and you can keep doing this for layer after layer after layer until you have got it perfect. Luckily for me though, I have got a lot of practice in painting eyes, so they come pretty perfectly easy to me. It's just basically the shape, and after the shape, the next hardest thing is getting the iris in the right place on the eyes. I start with a darker version of the color that the iris is going to be before I put the brighter version. And the most important thing with this is just to try and get the shape right before you even move on to the rest of it. Once you've got the shape of the dark color right, you can move on to adding the lighter color and then a black in the center of each eye, as well as white for a specular highlight. I like to put a long, large one on the left hand side and then a very small tiny dot on the other side. One of those goes into the pupil, the other does not touch the pupil at all, and this just makes it look like they are glossy even though they are not. And obviously now it is a matter of rinse and repeat, or copy and paste across every single other model. Once the irises and the pupils and the highlights and everything have fully dried, I like to take a little bit of a gloss varnish or a gloss clear coat, whichever you want to call it, and I paint that over the lips and also over the eyes themselves. Try not to get this on the eyelashes, and if you're going to get any overspill anywhere, try to make sure that it is pretty much on the bottom eyelid and not the top, because that's where the water would lay. If there were any water in your eyes, and that would make a lot more sense to anyone looking at. Can the box stop? I've been trying to do this damn voiceover for the last, I don't know how many hours, but the most amount of box ever decided to drive past. Anyway, obviously we know this is the part where I put the head on the model and I can call this damn thing done. If you have made it this far into the video, I want to say a massive thank you, of course, for watching my video on my channel. I guess this is the time when I should say things like that. I'm thankful for everybody who watches and clicks the like button, and also those who share the videos. You don't understand how much that helps the channel like mine. Of course, if you want to see more of this content, well then you need to click the subscribe button and make sure that your notifications are turned on so that you can see the next video that I post when I post it. This is also the time I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreons, because without them the lights wouldn't be able to blind my eyeballs, and I would not be able to make videos like I currently do. So thank you to the Patreons, and if you didn't like anything you saw in this video, I legit don't care, and you should probably, just like the motorbikes, f*** off.